Yo, 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 people and patrons of the night, it is your freed host of the Horror Tavern, BD here. Welcome. Make sure to take a seat, to grab a drink, and enjoy as we explore the limitless cavern that is the horror genre. I am free. Finals are done. It is now summer. I can finally focus on the channel. I can review and upload a bunch of stuff, get back to reading, get back to watching. I'm back in business. And in order to celebrate tomorrow, I think that it's fitting that I talk about the book that I'm going to be discussing for this video, because tomorrow is Cinco de Mayo. It is the Day of the Dead. We're celebrating the dead, giving our respects to them. And what better to talk about a book for Cinco de Mayo than Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz, about a vigilante guy who's able to see ghosts, see dead people, and he lives in California. A lot of Mexican people in California. It works perfect. So yeah, I'm talking about Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz. This is actually my very first Dean Koontz book. That's right. I've never read a Dean Koontz book, but all of my friends that are reviewers, that check out horror, they've been fans of Dean Koontz from who I've talked to. I'll link the two channels down below, but some of the guys that have read Dean Koontz that I know are big fans of him are my friend Monster Blood. Monster Blood is a big Dean Koontz fan. He's reviewed Dean Koontz books. I'm going to link his channel down in the description. Shady Side Library as well. Shady Side Library is a big Dean Koontz fan, so I'm going to link his channel down below. They both have reviews. They've both talked about him, and they have told me that I should check out Dean Koontz, especially Monster Blood. He's like, yo, check out Dean Koontz, read some of his stuff. Apologies, by the way, if I'm like sniffling or my throat is sore. I've been sick for the past few days, so a little bit clogged up, but I'm excited to make vids, so we're hopping right into it. But he's told me to read Dean Koontz, and I saw on, all the top horror lists, I have a Goodreads, I go through various different Goodreads lists, and I see books that are labeled as like the best horror books, the most popular horror books, and I try to read through them, especially for adult horror, and Odd Thomas was on there, and I clicked on Odd Thomas, I read the premise, and I thought the premise to the story sounded amazing, so I decided to check it out, and this is definitely the most unique thriller book I've ever read. It is batshit crazy. It's odd. The book is called, Odd. The book is odd, but it's odd in the good way. It's weird in the right way. And there's a lot of great aspects to the book that I enjoyed. Now, do I love this book? I don't love this book. I don't love it. I think it's good. I think it's quite good. Even very good because of the ending. The ending hits you in the feels, man. But there are some, not really problems, but I felt like there's some wasted potential involving a certain part of the book that I'm going to talk about without giving spoilers. But overall, I think this is a fun reading experience. I think it's a good book to check out, and I would recommend all of you pick up Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz. And I'm going to talk about the plot a little bit without trying to give too much of it away, spoil you too much, and then I'm going to go into the positives and then the stuff that I do think was wasted potential. So first, what is Odd Thomas about? Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz. This book apparently has like 8 sequels. It has a bunch of sequels. I think like 7 or 8 sequels. For right now, I'm treating it as a standalone book. I don't know if I will touch the sequels. I heard they get batshit crazy and not in a good way, but maybe I'll check them out later. But I'm going to talk about this as if it's a standalone book. So Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz is about this guy named Odd. That's right. His name is actually Odd on his birth certificate. And you get introduced to the fact that he's a strange individual. He's a fry cook. He works at like a local diner grill place in a town called Pico Mundo. This is in California. Extremely hot in the middle of the desert. Very small town, kind of like a tourist town. And as he's living his life, he's a very smart guy, he's very educated, but he's the best fry cook ever in this town. Like, he's amazing at it, and everyone stops by the grill just to see him. He knows everybody in town. He's kind of like this really friendly, innocent guy that gets along with all the people, but he has a unique talent, and that's the fact that he has a sixth sense. He can see ghosts. He's able to see spirits of dead people, and he's able to basically interact with them, see them, and although they can't talk, these ghosts oftentimes will express emotions to him, describe situations, and he tries to resolve some of their issues, try to learn more about them so he can help them get guided into the afterlife. You actually get introduced in the book with this little girl that you see that you find out is actually dead. She's a ghost, and she's holding Odd's hand. She's walking him across the sidewalk. And he sees this guy that he knew from, I think, high school or something. And he's riding in, like, this muscle car rolling down. He says what's up to Odd. You know, he knows him. And he basically finds out from this ghost girl, even though she can't talk, she basically hints by showing some of the strangle marks on her and some things that she was actually murdered. And the reason why she's walking around the town right now instead of going into the afterlife is because she has some stuff to avenge for her, to get some justice for her. And he finds out that this guy in the muscle car had actually sexually assaulted the little girl and killed her and strangled her and a bunch of horrible stuff. He basically finds that out just by seeing her situation. And then you find out that Odd is a vigilante. Not only does he interact with the ghost, not only does he have a sixth sense, but he tries to get justice. So he goes on this big chase scene with this guy. And Odd is not like a John Wick character. You know, this man is not grabbing a pencil and killing 3 people. He's not a man of focus, a man of sheer fucking will. No, he's not that. He's just the average Joe, a normal guy. I mean, he's odd. He's weird. He's a weirdo. I like weirdos. Pause. No pause. But he's the average Joe. He doesn't like beat people's ass. You know, this more so is the chase scene where he's just trying to stall for time. He's already called the police. Or no, he chases the guy into a backyard, jumps into the pool, wrestles with the guy inside of the pool. And then the guy, like, jock runs into like the patio door and smashes it. A woman with her child starts screaming, and then he tells the woman, as Odd gets in, he tells the woman to call the police, and he tries wrestling with the guy. You know, he's throwing lamps at him, trying to take him down, and it's not really working. But then the police come in time, and then Odd is sort of, the situation is fixed. And you come to find out that the sheriff of this town, of the police department, is actually really good friends with Odd. The reason why is because Odd and him have basically worked on cases together. AKA, Odd will speak to spirits, speak to ghosts, and then he'll find out about these criminals and then go chase after them. And apparently in the beginning, obviously the sheriff did not take this guy seriously. He thought he was a nuisance because this guy would attack random people. But then the sheriff started realizing that, hey, Odd, for some reason, always manages to find these criminals without any sort of evidence, without any sort of lead, just out of nowhere. And he always seems to be 100% correct. And that's when he starts believing about the ghost. Odd shares with him his ability to see ghosts. And the sheriff's sort of like a father figure to Odd. Odd doesn't have a father. Well, he has a father, but his father's not active in his life. His mother is mentally insane. She's got a bunch of problems with her. So he has no real family. He's sort of by himself. So the sheriff is kind of like this father figure. You find out that they work together again, solving a bunch of cases, doing a bunch of stuff. And then they part ways, and you start finding out about Odd's life. You start, you know, seeing that he has this beautiful girlfriend that he wants to marry called Stormy. Stormy's kind of like the opposite of Odd. Odd is sort of a shy, timid, and innocent guy. Stormy is a good girl, but she's got that attitude. She's got more spunk. She's got that charm. She's kind of like the backbone to Odd. Very, very interesting character. She's got a lot of funny dialogue. She's very charming. A lot of the characters in this book are charming. You can kind of root for them. Odd you especially root for, but I was rooting for Stormy. She's pretty charming. She's pretty interesting. I like her as a support character to Odd, and I think they make a pretty good couple. I mean, I genuinely do believe that they are in love with each other, that they've been together for a long time. Very much believable in the writing. And as you see Odd's life, you start seeing the different things that he deals with. Eventually, one day he's working at the diner, and this man comes in, and he sort of looks a little bit off. Now, he looks like a normal man. Some people kind of think that he's sort of weird looking, but as soon as Odd sees him, he calls him the fungus man, because this guy looks like a fungus. He looks like he drains the life out of anywhere he goes. As soon as he enters the diner, Odd gets really uncomfortable. He thinks the guy is strange. He gets a really bad feeling about him. And you get introduced to another ability of Odd, and that is the fact that he not only sees ghosts, but he sees malevolent spirits. And these malevolent spirits in the book are called Bodocs. Now, Bodocs are these entities made completely out of liquid darkness, smoky liquid darkness, shadows, whatever you want to call it. They are all black beings. They're sort of these wolf, hyena-like creatures. They run in packs, and they stalk basically evil individuals and chaotic situations. They feed off of chaos. Actually, you're going to see a picture of a Bodak in the thumbnail of this video. That's what they look like. They're terrifying, horrifying. They basically kind of have like no features, but they're able to like, I guess, sense the world around them. And even though they have like no real eyes, no real mouth, no real ears, they have a sort of general liquid shadow shape. And Odd can see these things basically sniffing people, looking at people, kind of hunting down different events and entities. And they are not able to affect the real world. They cannot hurt anybody. They cannot attack people. They simply are these phantom spectators. They go to any evil individual. They go to any sort of, like, I don't know, chaotic, tragic event that happens in the town, and they're always going to be there because they seemingly feed off of it. They get nourishment off of seeing all this chaos and death and violence and sadness. You know, Odd describes that there was this guy in town who was like a serial killer. He ended up kidnapping his family, tortured them, and did unspeakable things to them in the basement for like 3 days. And during that day, right before he committed the crime, there was 3 Bodaks, these 3 hyena wolf-like shadow creatures following him. And then during this like big event that Odd describes, like it was like a giant like accident or earthquake or something, there was like 14 or like 15 Bodaks or whatever, like running around and tracking everybody. So these Bodaks usually, depending on how big the situation is, there will be a lot more of them that form. And they feed off, again, chaos and violence. So when this man walks in, there's a Bodak already present in the diner. The Bodak is sort of sniffing around and kind of looking for something. And when the man shows up, the Bodak basically stops what it's doing and completely faces the man. And as this man orders a bunch of food, he orders like milkshake, hamburgers, fries, a bunch of stuff, more Bodaks start coming in. They start slipping through the keyholes in the diner door. They start coming in, and next thing you know, there's like 4 Bodaks inside the diner just watching this guy as he's stuffing his face with food. And outside, there's like 15, 16 Bodaks that are just staring from the windows in. And again, Odd is the only one who's able to see them. And nobody else can see them. They're completely invisible to everybody else. But he's able to see these 20 hyena shadow-like creatures just watching this man as he eats. And this man just casually eating, doesn't give a shit. And meanwhile, these Bodaks are just staring him down. And as he gets up and pays for his meal and walks out, these Bodaks all start gathering up, and there's like a pack of like 25, 30 or more just following behind this guy. This guy is eating a meal, and there's 20, 25, 30 Bodaks following this guy. Mind you, during the night of that guy when he, you know, killed his whole family and all these disasters, at max there's like 10 Bodaks. This guy just walking creates 20 to 25. That is one of the most badass villain intros I've ever read in horror. It's so effective, so to the point, so intimidating. It's so creepy. Again, it's just like, I always say this, but it's like that anime villain type of energy. That Black Air Force energy. This guy, odd-looking Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy-looking guy, comes in, just starts casually eating food, and these creatures that show up in swarms of 5, 10, whatever, during these, you know, earthquakes and serial killer events and giant homicides, genocides, murder, 20 of them bitches just show up and just watch this guy intently. That is creepy as shit, and it is so effective. And of course, Odd sees this. He gets freaked out. He tells some of his peers about it, and he decides to follow this guy. And as he follows this guy eventually leaves his house, and Odd decides to go into his house. And when he goes into his house, he starts having weird experiences. He enters the house and then realizes that this entire sequence of him going into the house and going into this completely black door, like it's like a completely black void of a door in a room in the house. He doesn't know why, but he goes into the house, gets there. As soon as he gets there, he realizes that he's not even left the car. This entire sequence has been a future sight vision that he's had, and he just saw himself do this stuff. And then he gets back in track. He goes up, and he's about to go into the door now, what he thinks for real. And when he goes in there and then finds a red blinking light and does something, next thing you know, he realizes that's another future vision. And he's actually still standing outside the door. And yeah, this time he tries to get in, and hundreds of Bodaks flood out of the thing. hundreds. Like a giant swarm of cockroaches. There's hundreds of these shadow hyena creature bodocs running out of there, terrifying, just like scurrying out of there as fast as they can, leaving the crib. And of course, one of them, before they leave, as there's like hundreds of them just running, one of them stops and turns and looks at, Odd, sort of sniffs him out and then goes away. He then finally has the courage to go into that room. And when he goes into the room, he sees pictures of Charles Manson, all these famous serial killers. And then he sees these cabinets, and he goes up to the cabinets, he opens it up, and he sees that there are all these files of just all different serial killers, all like newspaper clippings, information about all the different homicides and murders that they did. All their information is in here. And he's like, what is this shrine? He realizes that this entire room is like a shrine to serial killers and people who commit genocide, homicide, all these different horrible, atrocious acts. And then he sees basically a file that doesn't belong to any infamous serial killer. It in fact belongs to the guy, because at some point Odd Thomas, I said Odd Thomas, his name is Odd, but I think his middle name is Thomas, so Odd Thomas. He saw like his photo ID, he saw the ID inside this room of the serial killer, and he finds out his name is I think Bob Robertson, which is funny because Robertson, or Robert, can be short for Rob, so it's like Bob Robson. This whole book is full of unique, gimmicky characters, in a good way. So Bob Robertson is apparently the name of this guy who's had all these different bodocs and aura to him. And when he opens up this file, he notices something earlier in the room, which was that the calendar year for this month, on the calendar that had like a naked lady. He sees all these different like weird stuff, like cigarette ashes, cigarette trays, alcohol, beer bottles, and all these like naked pornographic magazines around this like little mobile home house, whatever. And when he sees this like nude woman calendar, he sees that the page of this month is ripped out. And when he opens up this file that's Bob Robertson, there's absolutely no information in there. However, there's the torn out calendar month inside of the file, and circled in like red marker or whatever is tomorrow's date. And Odd realizes, holy shit, this is a shrine of serial killers and people who committed all these horrible murders. And this guy who's had 20 bodocs follow him around just when he's normally going through the town, and now has had hundreds upon hundreds, maybe even thousands of bodocs running out of this very room. This guy is going to do something horrendous tomorrow. And I only have 12 hours, 24 hours or so to stop it. And that's the premise of the book. It's a countdown timer. Odd realizes that he's been off more than he can chew. He's found this unique figure, this unique guy. He has to then communicate it to the police, figure out if he can get help, figure out how he can solve it, because now it's in his hands. He's basically thrown into the deep end of the pool. He has to find a way to swim out. He has to find a way to potentially stop whatever calamity, whatever thing is about to happen tomorrow at the hands of this Bob Robertson guy. And if he doesn't, this whole town might be changed forever in one of the most horrible ways possible. And all the people that he loves might be at jeopardy. And that's the premise of Odd Thomas. Again, a really intense thriller book. The setup to this book is really interesting. It's really well paced. A lot of good action scenes. Again, I love every scene involving the bodocs. The bodocs are such a great entity. They're so unique, so creepy. They add a lot to the story. Bob Robertson is a good villain. He's got that aura. He's got that serial killer presence that really works. The shrine in his house of all these like rooms of serial killers and stuff. Just the way Dean Koontz described it, this is such an ordinary house. Kind of seems like it belongs to some weird guy or perv. And then you go into this room and it's this giant memorial for all these killers. I was like, holy shit. The scene of hundreds of bodocs just flooding out of there like a swarm of cockroaches was terrifying. All the different scenes involving ghosts with Odd Thomas is very good. And you do get some really good twists. There's a really good twist, I think, halfway into this book that threw me completely for a loop. I was like, what the fuck just happened? That threw me for a loop. There's a twist. You know it if you've read it. There's a twist halfway into this book that I read, and I was like, what the fuck? I was not expecting that. And I got really confused as to where the story was going to go. So yeah, that was pretty well done. And another thing I want to compliment, that I spoke about this with Monster Blood, that Dean Koontz' writing prose is really good. He's got really good prose. There's a lot of good similes, metaphors, descriptive imagery in the book. The way Dean Koontz writes in this book, I can't speak for his other books, but the way he writes in this book is so fantastic. There's a lot of analogies and stuff that went off in my head. I think there was a scene of these bodaks surrounding around a little girl's bed, and Dean Koontz, I have to paraphrase it, but he described it as they look like a bunch of Mayan, like, demonic priests, like ready to do a ritual sacrifice to her. And it's described as that because, again, these bodaks are shadowy, hunched, you know, hyena-like creatures, and, you know, demonic priests, they wear robes and they do a sacrifice. That's what it seemed like. So it was a really well done imagery. The way I describe it can't do it justice. You have to read the book. There's a lot of good prose in this book that makes it a really enjoyable read. Now, my only critique of this book is, again, the second half of the book kind of falters for me. There was a lot of buildup in the... Again, sorry, I'm sick, so I gotta sip on this. There was a lot of good set up in the first half of this book, introducing all the different characters, introducing the situation, getting yourself introduced to the high stakes of the situation, how violent it can be, how gory it can be. And then that big twist happens, and I got really excited to where the book was going to go. And then it sort of goes into like a bunch of... Sorry, told y'all I'm sick, man. I'm not lying about that. Sorry. It basically goes into like a lot of different directions. You get introduced to like Thomas's family and some stuff, and, you know, some of his concerns involving the people. And again, it still keeps you on your track. But then you get to the climax, the actual big scene, and you find out this reveal about that there might be more than going on. Like, there's more than meets the eye. It's not just what you think is happening. It's not just like, oh, a serial killer, you know, goes on a rampage. No, there's more than that. There's some extra layers to this mystery. And the actual climax, the actual big payoff thing for this entire book felt lackluster. It didn't feel as action-packed as I wanted it to be. It didn't feel that unique. It didn't feel that, you know, standout. It kind of felt ordinary. Like, as I was reading it, I was like, this feels pretty ordinary for such a crazy book. This book has a bunch of wild stuff in it. This book has a bunch of crazy concepts. Again, it's called Odd Thomas. It's probably one of the most insane thriller books I've read. But then you get to the climax, and the climax is very ordinary. It's just, I can't talk about it because it's going to give spoilers. But it wasn't that great. It wasn't even that good, to be honest. I was just sort of like, meh, it's all right. And for the big payoff climax to be all right, I was a little bit let down. You know, it felt like all this steam kind of blew out. And I was like, you got the train running. I thought we were about to go full speed ahead. And then we took a stop. And I was like, all right, that's not exactly what I expected. Now, the very twist ending is amazing. The twist ending is so bittersweet. It's so sad. It's so fucking sad of an ending. But it's beautiful at the same time. I would not be shocked if people almost cried reading that ending. The ending is super good, and I love that ending as a finish to this book. But the climax, the big payoff scene, the second half of the book starts to fall off and decline, and it gets a little bit too crazy, a little bit too weird, and it goes nowhere. That's my big problem. It really doesn't go anywhere. It goes into a very mundane thing, and the way it's solved sort of just felt like you had all this big setup. Dean Koontz with his prose, he's painting this beautiful picture, this Mona Lisa. He's about to carve it out, and then right as he's about to go dabble the paint, he just takes a bunch of blue paint and just dumps it over. Like, this man was doing all these lines. He's ready to put the finishing touches, and right as he was about to put the finishing touches, he just dumps blue paint on it and just smears it and makes like a smiley face. Very average. It wasn't anything stand out. So that's how I feel about the book. But nonetheless, still an enjoyable book. I would give Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz an 8.5 out of 10. I think I gave it 8.3. I'm going to bump it up to 8.5. I'm going to bump it up to 8.5 because that ending is really good. And again, I love the bodaks. I love all the stuff in this book. This book gets an 8.5 out of 10. This is a very good book. I enjoy it. Quite a good book. I would recommend all of you read it. I know there's people out there that told me it's amazing. It's their favorite Dean Koontz book, or one of them. It's a fantastic one. I didn't think so. I didn't think that that climax was worth it being amazing. It's still a really good book, and I recommend it. And it's probably one of the craziest thrillers you'll ever read. But it just was missing that final piece. So maybe when I read the sequels in the future, it might be better. It might get better. I don't know. I haven't heard good things, but you never know. Maybe I might feel different. I doubt it, but you never know. And that's all I have for today. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Celebrate the dead. Celebrate your loved ones that have passed. Show them respect. Give them the honor and celebration. And yeah, that's my very first Dean Koontz book. That's my review for it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to have a lot of content pumping out over the summer break, so hope you guys are ready for that. And that's all I have for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. We're almost at 300 subscribers. I haven't checked to see if we surpassed it. You know, the channel's been growing at a fast rate, but if we can get to over 300 subscribers, y'all, that Q&A video is going to be even better. I'll do something even after that that's going to be crazier. So, again, thank you so much. Hope you guys have a great day. And deuces. Yo, man, the fact that, I don't know, it seemed like I was laughing throughout the video. I was not laughing. It's my throat is dying, yo. My throat is, these Botox are coming after me soon, all right? It's about to be a bloodbath.